Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. I'm back with Claudine, and today we're talking about the opening of the Louvre, which I think will be a great topic for Claudine because we all know that she loves the Louvre. She knows everything about the Louvre, and now we're going to know even more. So I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yeah, this is very exciting because it is a big anniversary. So it's the 230th anniversary opening of the Louvre that we know it as a museum.
So wild. 230 years.
Yeah, sound the birthday horns. It's very exciting. So it was opened on August 10th, 1793, so 230 years ago. And when it opened, it was known as the Musée Central des Arts de la République. So it wasn't known as the Louvre as we know it today.
That's a very different name.
A very different name. It went through quite a few different names over time. But the date was chosen for a very special reason. But going back when, for the Palais de Louvre, which was originally created in the 12th century, which we'll do another one someday when we talk about the beginning of the building of the medieval Louvre, the fortress, then the medieval Louvre, and then it turning into what we know today, because it's just a humongous, very long topic. But art has always been in the Palais, going back to the 16th century when the Francois Premier first held a few of his prized possessions there. And Louis XIV added on with the Salon de Roi, and then also, which is also today's Galerie d'Apollon. And in 1725, they moved the yearly Salon to the Salon Carré as well, with the Academy of Paintings. But going back before that, on May 26, 1791, a year and a half into the French Revolution, the National Assembly of France declared a museum should be created, bringing together the monuments of all of the science and the arts. So for the next years, things moved pretty slowly, although art from the churches and immigrant families that left France were amassed. When people would leave France, and they basically were like, okay, well, you left, now we can take anything we want that's yours.
That's so messed up.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what that's what Germans did to the Jews during World War II as well. But they just looked at it, was like, okay, well, you left. And so now you're forfeiting everything. And even like if you left, they would say you basically forfeited your citizenship as well.
Man, they were intense.
Yeah, that was pretty intense back then. On August 9th of that year, the new government of Paris, the Paris Commune, moved into the offices of the Hotel de Ville. During the night, they met to come up with a plan to save the state, meeting until 3 a.m. On one side wanted to attack the king, and the others fought against it. But Louis XVI wasn't really playing along with all the changes the government was doing in the end. And so on August 10th, 1792, at 8 a.m., thousands of men and women and even children armed with weapons charged into the Palais des Tuileries, which is where Louis XVI was, and Marie Antoinette. The 950 Swiss guards that they had were some of them were completely, surprised and off guard when they came in. The 930 gendarmes and the 2,000 National Police Guards outside were trying to keep the angry mob at bay, but they barely could. One issue was that they had very little ammunition, and all of these thousands of people that came with guns and ammunition and even a cannon.
Even a cannon? Where'd they find a cannon?
Oh, they're just rolling it down the street. I mean, back then you had all sorts of them. I mean, I wonder, like at the Musée de l'Armée, which is, at the Les Invalides, there's all those cannons there. I mean, they're not, some of them are still on wheels.
That's very true. I mean, there's roll it all the way down. No problem.
Where would you get the cannonball? But still, not giving anybody an idea, though.
They filled them with baguettes.
They filled it. Yeah, exactly. Like it'd be like the 18th century t-shirt gun.
Yeah, those are like a t-shirt gun. Well, I mean, those day-old baguettes can be quite dangerous.
Yeah, they can. Those things could get pretty hard pretty quick. But the royal family was able to escape. They were running through the Tuileries to the National Assembly. That's just right over there across the bridge to the Place de la Concorde. When they were there, Louis XVI was treated with wine and food and treated, like the king that he was, even though they hated him. But Marie Antoinette was tossed into this locked room with her children. But that was the end. That was the day that they ended the monarchy. So the monarchy ended on August 10th, 1792. So when they wanted to decide on a date to open this new museum that they were creating, they picked August 10th because it was also symbolizing the fall of the monarchy.
I mean, definitely some symbolism there because, like, that was a huge part of French history, obviously. And they're like, we are bringing the art back to the people.
Yeah, and I love the fact that like all of there's dates like this all the time. I mean, there's other dates that, will be the same date in 4 different points of history, and they use that same date for, I love that because I also love the anniversaries of things. But it's really interesting that they do that and mark these occasions. I mean, just like everything we talked about the other day with 14 Juillet and the different events that happen on that date. It's pretty fascinating. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we love all the full circleness that Claudine brings to us.
Yeah, I love a full circle. I need to paint my apartment in all like chalkboard paint.
Yeah, that could be a little psycho.
I don't think I like that all my walls and everything's like nice and white because my apartment's so bright. So I don't know if I'll do that. That would be a little weird.
You're like, she's lost it finally.
People come over. Why does she have all these like circles and names on her walls?
Conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, exactly. But when the museum opened, the Louvre that we see today, if you stretched it all out, it's 11 kilometers. If you stretch the entire building out, it's massive. It's the biggest museum in the world. But when we're talking about when it opened in 1793, it was only the extent of the Grand Gallery. So when you go into the Louvre and you're going to go over to see the Mona Lisa, the big long gallery that goes along the Seine, that's the Grand Gallery.
And that's a really beautiful space too, with all that light.
It is really beautiful. It was originally called the Galerie de Bordeaux. So it was based, they didn't call it the Grand Gallery back then. And it was created under Henry IV. It was created specifically to link the Palais des Tuileries, built by Catherine de Medici, to the Palais de Louvre. And it's pretty long. I mean, it's like 4/10 of a mile.
Wow,
Like
I never realized.
The entire building. Yeah. So if you stretch the whole thing out, what we go into, we can't go all the way to the very end, like to the very end by the Tuileries. The museum ends at one point, and then there's offices and some of the libraries are down there. But it's a massive space. He started building it in 1595, and right now it's 1,500-foot long corridor is what we could go in there today. And when they first had it, Henry IV used it for his son, Louis XIII, for fox hunts.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about this. I mean, can you imagine hunting foxes inside the Louvre?
Yeah, like there's horses in there galloping down and foxes and dogs. I think that maybe they should just have a fox in there now because that is always the worst and most crowded part of the Louvre. Maybe we just need a wandering fox to kind of keep people moving.
Yeah, bring it back, guys.
I'm going to bring one in with me. I'm going to find out where I could grab one. But when the museum
boards and the foxes, that's going to be really interesting.
I know. I'm just bringing back to the history. This is what it was intended for. When it opened, it had 538 paintings. It had 184 objects, objets d'art, so all sorts of little things. Some of the stuff that had belonged to the king. There was 39 sculptures, busts, and all of those are still in the museum today. And then there was 29 tables of hard stone pieces. And hard stone pieces are, if you go into the Galerie d'Apollon to go see the crown jewels, there's 3 massive cases there, and they're all filled with these really beautiful vessels and goblets and all these different. Some of it's like cut rock crystal, but then some of it is stones, and it's hard stones. And it was something that was a big thing coming out of Milan, and Cardinal Mazarin had this massive collection of it because it was really it was really pretty ritzy to have these things, because some of them are huge. And so somebody had to find these huge stones and then carve this piece out of it. So there's one that's there that's of lapis lazuli, and lapis lazuli, was also used for a paint color, and it was the most expensive paint color in the world at the time because it was ground up gems.
Oh, wow, that's really cool.
And so when you go in the Gallery d'Apollonie, because you have, the room is gorgeous. You've got those gorgeous ceilings and the tapestry paintings, and of course the crown jewels. And I used to just always go in there, and then I would just always kind of walk past those other cases. And then one time I went in there and I stopped and looked and read every single thing, and then learned more about it. And then now it's like it's fascinating to see those. They're gorgeous. The detail, like the enamel work on some of it, like the sculpture pieces on it is just absolutely gorgeous. So when you go, well, especially if I take somebody to the Louvre, you don't want to miss them.
Yeah, now that you know that information, it's way more interesting.
Yeah, it's way more interesting. And that room is just absolutely gorgeous as well. Um, but Francois, most of this stuff goes back to the kings. And so it started with Francois Premier. Francois Premier was raised with his appreciation of art and culture. His mother, Louise de Savoie, she was obsessed with the Italian Renaissance. And so it was it was Louise that actually brought the fork to France. Everybody always likes to give it to Catherine de Medici, but it wasn't her. It was Louise de Savoie. She brought the fork. And so she would go to Italy all the time. And Francois went one time, and he would return because he had met this young whippersnapper. He wasn't young, he was an old guy, but named Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh man, that was a young whippersnapper.
Yeah, no, he was really old at this point. But he met Leonardo and talked to him, and they kind of began a friendship. And he asked him to design one of these like walking models of I think it was of a lion. And so he was working on it, and he came back again another time. And he had said the first time, like, do you want to come? You should come and live in France, and I'll put you up and take care of you. And, Leonardo said, no, no. And then when he came back again, he asked again. And at that point, the Medici family was kind of in turmoil. They were getting, at this point, they were getting ousted out of power, and everything was happening. And they were running out of scapegoats to blame. And so Leonardo thought, well, maybe I should go because the Medici family is what was paying for his life. So he decided to leave and move to France. He moved down to the Loire Valley where Francois put him up. And when he came over to France, basically riding literally on a donkey. And he came, with a few other people with him, but he brought with him a bunch of his own paintings. And 6 of those paintings that he brought with him are in the Louvre today.
I love that he just rode in on his donkey and was like, what's up, guys?
Can you imagine how long that took? And it's so funny. Like you just think that like the Mona Lisa was just like hanging out there in the back of a donkey. And now it's like, under bulletproof glass.
That might be like my favorite information about the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. Well, and then another thing about Leonardo that I absolutely love and think is hilarious, that Leonardo not only was a painter and a designer and an engineer, he was also a party planner.
No.
Yeah, Francois used him as his party planner.
I mean, wasn't that one of those movies that, what is it, Romeo and Juliet? I don't know, one of those stupid movies where they had a big party and they're like, yeah, Leonardo designed the wings for this or the decorations for the party.
Oh, yeah. I think I know I think it is. Isn't it that old Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah. And it was like, Leo designed this party. But they were telling the truth.
But he was a party planner. I mean, I used to do events too. So I was like, oh, I feel so a kinship now.
You are the same.
Same as Leonardo. But so most of these paintings were either given to Francois or he paid for them. So, I mean, I could go through each one individually, but we don't need to do that today. But, and Italy is still ticked off about it. We don't want to get Giuseppe upset. But Italy is still mad about it. Yeah, and when 2019, when they had the huge Da Vinci exhibition at the Louvre, they were working on that for years to put that together. And there was things that they wanted to get, because when you have these exhibits, things come from all over the world. Italy was like refusing, like, nope, we're not giving anything to you. And they finally gave the drawing of the Vitruvian Man, and they only let him keep it for 30 days.
What?
And they would not send up any paintings. So they had like a projection of the Last Supper. And they had like it was like a scientific x-ray of some of those, but Italy would still not. And the president of France had to get involved with it, with the Italian president.
I love that.
I know, or prime minister, whatever they have there. But it's just kind of hilarious. It's like, okay, come on, like get over it already.
Yeah, seriously, move on, buddy.
Move on. But so Francois, the collection of the Louvre really is the basis of Francois Premier. His when his son Henry II came along, he really didn't collect a lot. He didn't even really care. He at one point was given Michelangelo's dying slaves, and he was like, yeah, I don't really want them, and gave them to somebody else. Luckily, they came into the Louvre collection. But then later, it took until like his three sons that became king didn't really care. The next person that finally started collecting more things was Henry IV, and then of course Marie de Medici after he died. Louis XIII, the son of Henry IV, that's when they really started to have like their own personal artists. So Nicolas Poussin and Simon Vouet, all of these people started doing paintings that they were doing for the king. And then Louis XIV, of course, he's the one that broke the bank, acquiring everything he possibly could, including the Italian masters, the northern schools, and then all of his own French paintings that he had as well. And if you go through the Grand Gallery and you go down and you stop, there's about 175-ish paintings in there. Right now, there should be a few more, but right now there's a special exhibit that's going on that's mixed in with the permanent collection. So a lot of about 40 pieces out of the permanent collection are not on view today, and they'll come back in January. So some of it's gone. But if you go through and you look at every single plaque, a majority of them will say the Ancienne Collection, Louis XIV, Francois Premier. And so you could see, because it's labeled on the paintings, who they belong to.
Keep an eye out, guys. Keep an eye out.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the only people that basically is obsessed with finding all of those.
Yeah, but now we're obsessed because you're obsessed.
I know. So now you can go check it out. Then Louis XVI, Louis XV actually had quite a few different pieces, but a lot of that was because of his love. Madame de Pompadour, she had this huge affinity for Fragonard and all of that Rococo. And so most of the paintings that came into the collection of the Louis XV, I'm sorry, is because of Madame de Pompadour.
We love her.
I know we love her. And we did an amazing episode about her a couple of years ago. But if you go into the Louvre and you go up to the second floor, the Sully wing, it's all chronological. And there's one room that's like the painters of Louis XIII. And then it keeps going. You'll see like the other painters, it's all chronological. The funny thing is that even though that where the Louvre ends, which is in the 19th century, there's no room dedicated to the painters of Louis XVI. There's one bust of Marie Antoinette. There's not really paintings. There's some like objets d'art that belong to him, some furniture and stuff, but it's actually really interesting that there's really no paintings of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, I guess they were kind of like, we don't want to show those guys.
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that stuff is at Versailles, because that makes sense. But it's just interesting because you have paintings of Louis XV, Louis XIII, Louis XIV in the Louvre, but you don't have Louis XVI.
Could be that whole like murdering thing or something.
Yeah, I know. Who knows? It could be, yeah. But Louis XVI, he also started, he had quite a bit, and he actually instructed the gentleman in charge of the buildings, the Comte de Dangbier. He told him to purchase paintings to fill the void. So where they were missing paintings, like a lot of the Northern School, Rubens, Van Dyck, and he had them purchase all of those for the collection. During the decision, when they decided to create the museum, there was over 720 pieces. There was exactly 538 paintings. Of those 538 paintings, 3/4 of them had belonged to the kings.
Whoa,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
The rest of it, the rest of the 538 were ones that they had confiscated from churches and from those families that were fleeing France. The churches, when the revolution started, they were going against anything to destroy anything that, the monarchy had, but they were also going to destroy the churches. So, in the churches, which we've talked about before, the churches are basically the first museums, because the Catholic Church had so much money that they were able to pay for so much money for all of these paintings and pieces. And so that's where you could go, and you could still do that in Paris now. You could still go into these museums or churches and see Delacroix and Charles Lebrun, everything just hanging on the walls for free. And so to save those things, they were taking those out at churches. And then they came into the hands of the museum, and then the really important pieces just stayed in the museum. They didn't go back to the churches.
I mean, it is pretty wild how churches are literally just museums now. There's so many beautiful paintings, and we've talked about that in past episodes.
Yeah, we have. And each one of them is so different. And then, the stuff with the frescoes on the wall and just everything. I mean, you just Saint-Sulpice, which I'm literally looking at the towers out my window. You've got the 3 paintings of Delacroix right there on the wall, painted on the wall. And so it's really great too. I always encourage people to go into churches, even if you're not religious, just go in there anyway, because they're gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I always tell my clients the same thing. I'm like, go for it. It's beautiful. Same with Paris Chaz. I'm like, it's kind of morbid, but it's a beautiful cemetery.
Oh yeah, I gotta love the cemeteries. But when the Grand Gallery opened, when it opened in 1793, because when you go in there today and the ceiling is basically all windows, that's not how it originally was. If you walk outside the Louvre and you're walking against the building, especially on the Seine side, you see windows. But when you're in the Grand Gallery, there's only a couple windows, and they're just basically where there's some openings. But those windows are all still there. They're just all covered up. And so when they realized that it wasn't getting much light in from those side windows, and that direct light was actually damaging to the paintings. So another artist that I love, Hubert Robert, who does all of these great paintings about architecture. He did these paintings where he reimagined the Grand Gallery. And one of them in the painting, it's a big long corridor with the paintings on the walls, and and above it on the ceiling it's all windows. And so that was before it looked like it did today. So why it looks like today is because of this painting that Hubert Robert, and he ended up being involved in the design as well. So they just basically, those windows are still there, and if you walk slowly on the outside, I just did a live video a couple weeks ago, which I'll share on my website. But if you look, you could see the windows, and you could see the fake wall built in front of the window.
I never noticed that. That's
cool.
Interesting. You have to look.
Yeah. So when it opened in 1793, the ceiling was just a ceiling, and then you have all of these openings with windows, and there's a lot of windows going down. And so on the inside of the building, you didn't have like the Salle d'Etat, which is where the Mona Lisa is. That whole area around there was added in the 19th century by Napoleon III. So the Grand Gallery was just this very, very long corridor, and then it just had windows on both sides. And so the art, these paintings, 538 paintings, were literally hanging on the wall from floor to ceiling, like frame next to frame next to frame.
Whoa, I would have loved to have seen that.
There's some really great paintings of it showing what it looked like, and I'll put those on the website. And it's just, I've been to museums. I've been to the Barnes collection in Philadelphia, and that's a museum where there's just tons of things on the walls. And it's actually really kind of hard to focus in on anything, because
I
there's just
thought they were like painting paintings. Like that's pretty like miniature paintings.
Yeah. I know. And I love a painting inside of a painting. Like I love it when you could see, and I have some of these I've like spent hours like nerding out. Like, what painting is that? And you can still, those paintings are still in the Louvre today, which I just absolutely love that. And so when you look at it, when you think of what the Louvre is now and what it was then and how much was in there, I mean, it just had to be just absolutely packed. One of the reasons, and we've talked about this when we talked about the great men that saved the Louvre, it was because it was opened in the middle of the revolution in 1793. It was the smartest thing that they did, because giving it back to the people saved it from being destroyed.
That is so smart. Yeah, we talked about that before, how it probably would have been destroyed.
Yeah, because it's luckily that nobody had lived there as far as the king since Louis the 14th. And so I don't think in people's mind, that generation might not even known that it was ever the place where the kings lived. But they would have gone in there to destroy it. So it was really smart that they did that. When it opened, it was during the revolutionary years as far as the calendar. So this is when they had the calendar was a 10-day calendar. And so you didn't have 10 24-hour days. The whole 7-day week was strung out into 10 days. And of those 10 days, six of those days were reserved just for artists and copyists to go in there and copy paintings. 2 of those days it was closed for cleaning, and then 2 days was open to the public. But that first month it was open, it was only open for 12 days.
That's wow. That's
Yeah.
nothing.
So it's like a lot of things here in Paris when they call, Procope and things like that, like the oldest restaurant in Paris. And it's like, no, it's not. It was originally like a 7-Eleven where they stopped to get hay and coffee. It's not the oldest restaurant.
The Louvre
So
was the 7-Eleven.
the French 17th century 7-Eleven. But I don't, it's like the Louvre 1793, but then it's like, well, it wasn't open for very long. And in 1796, on April 26th, on my birthday, how rude that they closed it because the building was falling apart.
Oh wow. It's all connected to Claudine.
It's all these things always somehow happen on my birthday. But it was one of the things that was a public place, was this shrine to art, but the government was like, well, we're not going to just keep giving it money, so they closed it. And for 5 years, it was open to close many times until it finally reopened on the 14th of July, 1801. And then that's when everybody was able to visit. At that time, more art had been added. The Chateau de Versailles held all of the paintings of the French school because that opened as a museum. And then the Louvre was basically turned into the international school. So it was Italian and Northern European artists. Then a little gentleman came along named Napoleon. And as he went through his Italian campaign in the spring of 1796, he decided to go into these cities. He'd just basically go up and say, what are the greatest paintings you have in your collection? And every day he'd take 30 to 40 at a time, including paintings by Rubens, Titian, Raphael, full collections of the Duke de Parma, even a Da Vinci. And he was going and taking all these things. He had a treaty, the Treaty of Tolentino in February 1997, written up, basically allowing him to enter any museum and private building that he wanted, to take anything he wanted.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. So, back then you could do ththose kinds of things. He took things like the Apollo Belvedere. He took the statues of the Nile and Tiber, which the Tiber is still in the Louvre. He went to Venice, where he took the winged lions of St. Mark's that are on those tall columns. He took the bronze horses from St. Mark's Basilica, which is funny because people get upset about that. It's like, but Venice stole those from Rome. So,
Yeah, it's all stolen.
before they were all Italy. But he took those and put them on top of the Arc de Triomphe de Carousel. And then after he was ousted, he ended up having all these places wanted everything back. And so between treaties and gifts, like the Pope had given the horses that were on top of the Arc de Triomphe de Carousel were sent back, but they made copies of them. So today you see something like that up there, but those are now copies. He was even going to the Vatican and taking manuscripts and everything. And then even would charge them. They would have to pay to transport that stuff to Paris.
What a little thief.
Yeah, he was a little thief. But in 1814, after he was abdicated, all of these seized things they wanted back. Pope Pius VII worked with Louis XVIII, who at first was very happy to give everything back, but then decided to change his mind. Italy representatives were coming to Paris demanding their art return. In the end, 5,200 pieces, less than half of what he took, went back. Many pieces were lost, given away, or destroyed. So, but what is in the Louvre today is all diplomatically agreed on. It's all like free and clear. Now they have it, including the massive wedding feast of Cana that's in the room opposite the Mona Lisa. And if you go through, you also can see that on the plaques. It'll say seized Napoleon.
It's kind of crazy that they were able to agree on all that art because there's so much art.
There's so much. But yeah, I mean, I did one time I did a lot of research into that, trying to find, I wanted to know which things in the Louvre were his, and I read this book about it, and it was saying that basically so many of the things just were just destroyed or just disappeared. People were just, taking them as soon as they arrived in Paris. People just were like, oh, one for the museum, one for me.
It fell off the truck.
It fell off the truck. Exactly. Yeah. It's a little mafia-ish. But in November 1800, the Musée des Antiques moved into the summer apartments of Anne of Austria, which is below the Galerie des Palais, was inaugurated as the Musée Napoleon. During his rule, when he lived in the Tuileries, he brought a certain lady of the Louvre, the Mona Lisa, to his bedroom and slept with her. And every night he could go to bed looking at the Mona Lisa.
What a creep.
I know, kind of a creep. When you visit the Louvre today, obviously the Grand Gallery is much different than it was back then, with just, a little under 200 paintings in there, but it is still pretty amazing. And when you go in there, I always love to tell people the story of the fox hunting going on in there, which always makes everybody laugh. But, if you want to go to the Louvre and feel where it all began, that's where you go.
And now you listen to our podcast while you do it.
Yeah. And then if you're coming, make sure you reach out and book a tour of the Louvre with me.
I think that's a fantastic idea. And definitely check out ClaudineHemingway.com and book tours and check out those pictures. Claudine will have everything listed, and make sure you tune in next week, guys. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.